Welcome to our YouTube channel, Come Hobby With Us, where we share tips and tricks about some of our favorite hobbies. If you like this, please subscribe. Today's video is on an easy way to restore rusted chrome.
I want to show you how I am refinishing a particular basket. This happens to be a chrome basket. I'm trying to refinish a wood piece that could be used in the kitchen or the bathroom. It holds two different baskets, and these baskets are pretty rusted out. What I'd like you first to do is let's zoom in for just a moment, and let's take a look at some of the rust on this particular piece. If we could zoom in here, and you can see some of the rust. And I'm turning it a little bit so that it's not just what I'm looking at, but what you're seeing. And you can see that this basket is rusted. I have done part of this already. Let's take a look at this section right in here. You can see that there's quite a bit of rust in here, okay? This piece actually had a lot of rust on it. But what I'm looking for is a very smooth finish. If you look at this, it's a brace that holds the basket onto the wood piece. I have already removed the braces, and this particular one has been cleaned to a nice smooth finish. Let's take a look for a moment at what the other three still look like.
Notice the smooth finish to the top brace while the other three are still rusty.
Okay, we're back to the basket. What I wanted to do with this is I wanted it to have a nice new look. I considered spray painting this basket. I went and looked for a metallic spray paint. However, I really don't want a painted look to this metal. I want this metal to look fresh and new. What I did is I used a sanding sponge. These are very common. You can get them at your local hardware store for around $2, $3, maybe $4, depending on your store. Okay. Here's what they look like when you go to buy them. Here is one right here. This one is 120 grit. You'll see right here it says 120. This one that I bought is a 220 grit. The higher the grit, the finer the sandpaper. For this particular project, I'm going to use a 220 grit. These are sanding sponges. If you go to your hardware store, simply ask the clerk, can you show me your sanding sponges? So what we're going to do is we're going to take our sanding sponge and we're going to begin trying to clean this piece up just a little bit. I have my sanding sponge and I have my basket. All I am going to do is give some light pressure to this as I rub this across the metal. And I'm just going back and forth. I'm getting down in between the wire on here and giving it a nice look. If we could zoom in, you can see I did not have to work long. If we can zoom in here and take a look at what this section looks like compared to the sections on either side of this. And you can see that this cleaned up very nicely. I still have a little more to do around the edges of it. But all in all, I end up with a very nice, smooth finish. This is what I did as I did these pieces. They were easier, of course, because I didn't have to get between the wires. And I just gave it a light rubbing with this. Because this was chrome, this method worked. This method may not work on every kind of metal you have. However, even if you are going to spray paint this piece, I strongly suggest that you do this first. You will get off a lot of your rust spots. You will get off those little rough edges that you feel. And you will have a much nicer finished piece in the end. Again, on the sanding sponges, just let me show you. What I used was what's called a sanding sponge. These are some that I picked up at the local hardware store, and you should be able to find them quite easily. You can sometimes find your sanding sponges with a handle on them. This makes it very nice if you've got a lot of piece or if your hands hurt when you're working with small things, because you can take this and rub it back and forth and get that nice smooth finish. And here again, we're taking off a lot of the rust on this particular edge. I will come back later and show you these baskets completely restored and show you how shiny and new they look. We also like to talk about things that inspire as we're working on a piece. As I was working on this particular piece and taking off some of the rust spots, I couldn't help but think of how sometimes God uses a little bit of sandpaper of various sorts to smooth out some of my rough edges. A lot of times I think of those particular sandy pieces, those rusted areas, as something that is just, it's just there. And I think of God's sandpaper as something that's a little rough and hard on me. However, you did see how gently I was able to smooth this metal down and produce a very nice, clean, restored look. God does that with us. Sometimes the sandpaper that He uses to sand down our rough spots may be other people. The gritting and the rubbing against it sometimes takes effect in a way that God is using it to sand off our rough spots. You know, when Paul wrote the letter to the Corinthians, he talked about the thorn in his side. And he asked God 3 times to remove it. And God did not. But he said to him in 2 Corinthians chapter 12, Paul wrote that God said to me, "My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness." This sanding sponge was sufficient to restore this metal in a very easy fashion. God's grace is sufficient to restore us. Paul also wrote on here, "That is why, for Christ's sake, I delight in weaknesses, in insults, in hardships, in persecution, in difficulties. For when I am weak, I am made strong." When we are weak, when we have those rough spots, when God comes along with His sanding paper and removes our rough spots, He is actually making us stronger. He's making us better. He's making us have a nice restored finish. I hope that you have fun restoring your metal pieces, and I hope you enjoy the times when God puts a little sandpaper to you too. Thank you.
Steve and I thank you for watching this video on Come Hobby with us. We have a couple of video suggestions for you here on the left. And if you have not already subscribed to our channel, please click on our picture below. We're a couple of Sophies, seniors on fixed income. Hope to see you later. Bye.